Have you ever wondered why so many students, even after years of hard work and studying, still end up broke, stressed, and stuck living paycheck to paycheck? I remember being in that same position, juggling classes, scraping by on instant noodles, and thinking money problems were just part of being a student. In this video, we're going to break down the real reasons students fail financially, what's actually holding you back, and most importantly, I'll show you the proven steps you can take right now to avoid the trap and set yourself up for long-term success. Most students grow up thinking that living paycheck to paycheck is just part of life, especially during college years. The problem is this mindset doesn't just end after graduation. It follows them into adulthood, shaping the way they earn, spend, and save. When students normalize being broke, they begin to view financial struggle as something inevitable, rather than something that can be avoided or changed. This is one of the biggest reasons so many students fail financially. They've accepted the narrative that being broke is a stage of life you can't escape. And because of that belief, they don't take action to build better money habits early on. The reality is, paycheck to paycheck living creates a dangerous cycle. Students receive their part-time income or allowance, and instead of budgeting, they spend it immediately on food deliveries, gadgets, or going out with friends. By the end of the week, they're stressed, scrambling for cash, or dipping into credit cards. This cycle doesn't teach them how to manage money. It teaches them how to spend everything they have and live in constant financial stress. That stress becomes so normalized that by the time they graduate and start earning a salary, the same pattern continues, just with bigger numbers. It doesn't matter if you're making $500 a month as a student or $5,000 a month at your first job. If your expenses always equal your income, you'll always feel broke. The solution lies in breaking this mindset early, and the simplest way to start is with budgeting and intentional spending. Instead of treating every dollar as spending money, students need to assign their money a job before it even hits their account. For example, out of every 100, you might decide $20 goes into savings, 10 goes into investing, a 50 covers essentials like food and transportation, and 20 is for fun. This way, you're not just reacting to money coming in and out, you're directing it with purpose. The power of this approach is that it doesn't matter how small the amounts are, what matters is building the habit. If a student starts saving and investing even just $30 a month, by the time they graduate, they're not only financially ahead, but also mentally ahead because they've developed the discipline most of their peers lack. To illustrate, let's take an example. Imagine two students, Alex and Jordan. Both work part-time and earn about $400 a month. Alex spends freely, ordering takeout almost every night, going out on weekends, and buying new clothes to keep up with friends. By the end of the month, Alex has nothing left, maybe even a little debt on a credit card. Jordan, on the other hand, takes a different approach. Out of every 100 earned, Jordan automatically puts away $20 into a savings account, invests 10 into a simple index fund, and uses the rest for living expenses and fun. At the end of the year, Alex has zero to show for all that work. Jordan, without even feeling much difference, has saved over $240 and invested $120. It may not sound like much, but the key is that Jordan now has habits that can be scaled up when income grows. When Jordan graduates and lands a $3,000 monthly job, the same percentage system means hundreds going into savings and investments every month. Alex, meanwhile, continues the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle, only now with bigger bills and bigger debt. This example highlights how dangerous the mindset of, "I'll save later when I earn more," really is. The truth is, if you can't manage 400 wisely, you won't magically manage 4,000 wisely. Financial discipline scales with you, and the sooner you practice it, the stronger it becomes. Students who break out of the paycheck-to-paycheck mindset while they're young give themselves an enormous advantage because they're not just saving money, they're rewiring how they think about money. That mindset shift is ultimately what separates those who stay stuck in the cycle from those who build lasting financial freedom. One of the biggest traps students fall into financially is their overreliance on student loans and debt. The problem here is not just borrowing money to pay for education. That, in itself, can sometimes be a good investment, but rather borrowing without any real plan on how to manage or repay it. Most students sign loan papers with little understanding of interest rates, repayment terms, or the long-term consequences of carrying thousands of dollars in debt. They see loans as free money, something to worry about later, and that mindset creates a dangerous financial hole. By the time graduation comes, many students are already buried in debt before they even land their first job. What's worse is that they often add to the problem by swiping credit cards for non-essential spending, further increasing their debt burden. This reliance on borrowing becomes a crutch, training students to think that whenever they don't have money, debt will fill the gap. The issue with this is that debt compounds, and it compounds fast. A student loan of $20,000 might seem manageable on paper, but with interest building up and a lack of repayment strategy, it can balloon into something much larger by the time repayment kicks in. Credit cards make it even worse. A $500 shopping spree may not feel like a big deal in the moment, but at 20% interest, that debt can linger for years if only minimum payments are made. The psychological trap is that debt feels like a solution in the short term, when in reality it is quietly draining future income. Every dollar borrowed today is really multiple dollars owed tomorrow, And students who don't grasp this end up dedicating years of their lives to paying off decisions made in their late teens or early 20s. The solution is twofold. Borrow strategically and minimize reliance on debt by creating alternative income streams. Borrowing for education should be done only after carefully calculating the expected return on investment. For example, if you're going into a field where the average starting salary is $40,000, taking out $100,000 in loans doesn't make sense. On the other hand, a smaller loan that aligns with your future income potential could be justified, provided you have a plan in place to pay it off. Beyond that, students should actively work to reduce how much they borrow by cutting unnecessary expenses, applying for scholarships, and exploring part-time work or freelance opportunities. Creating side income during school not only reduces the need for borrowing, but also builds valuable experience that pays off after graduation. Another key solution is to understand repayment before borrowing. Running the numbers, how much the loan will cost over time, how much monthly payments will be, and how long repayment will take, gives students a realistic picture and forces them to think strategically about debt. Take the example of two students, Sarah and David. Both attend the same university, and both need $20,000 to cover their expenses. Sarah signs the loan documents without a second thought, uses some of the money not just for tuition, but also for lifestyle upgrades, new clothes, eating out, even spring break trips. By the time she graduates, her balance has grown with interest, and she's facing monthly payments that eat up a large portion of her new salary. She feels trapped, living each month just to pay off past spending. David, on the other hand, takes a different approach. He calculates how much the loan will cost over time and decides to borrow only $12,000, covering the rest through part-time work and a few scholarships. He also avoids lifestyle inflation, choosing a modest budget during school. When he graduates, his debt is smaller, his repayment is manageable, and because he already learned to balance work and study, he transitions smoothly into managing his full-time income. The difference between Sarah and David isn't intelligence, it's mindset and planning. Sarah used debt as a safety net, assuming she'd figure it out later. David treated debt as a last resort, something to be minimized and managed strategically. This simple difference in approach created a massive gap in financial outcomes. Students who rely blindly on debt almost always find themselves struggling after school, while those who borrow thoughtfully and supplement with income or savings come out with more control and freedom. A huge reason students fail financially is because of the lack of financial education. The problem begins early. Most schools focus on teaching subjects like math, science, and literature, but completely skip the real-world basics of money management. Students can solve complex equations or memorize historical events, yet they graduate without knowing how to budget, how credit works, or how to invest even a small amount of money. Without this knowledge, students are left to figure it out on their own, often through trial and error, which usually leads to costly mistakes. They swipe credit cards without understanding interest, they take on loans without knowing repayment terms, and they spend impulsively because no one ever taught them how to track income and expenses. The lack of formal financial education leaves young people blind to the realities of money, and by the time they realize the consequences, it's often too late. The consequences of this knowledge gap are significant. Students often learn about money through culture, marketing, or their peers. Advertisements constantly push consumerism, making it seem normal to spend beyond your means. Friends encourage each other to just put it on credit or worry about it later, reinforcing bad habits. Without financial literacy, students don't even realize the dangers of these behaviors until debt piles up. They also miss out on opportunities to grow wealth because they don't know the basics of saving or investing. For example, a student who learns about compound interest early could invest just $50 a month and end up with tens of thousands of dollars later in life. But without that knowledge, the same student spends that $50 on unnecessary items and loses years of potential growth. The problem isn't that students are careless. It's that they were never given the tools to make informed choices. The solution to this issue is straightforward. Seek out financial education outside of school and start applying it immediately. Even if schools don't teach money management, students can take control by reading personal finance books, watching educational videos, listening to podcasts, and following credible financial educators online. Resources are everywhere, and the key is to take advantage of them early rather than waiting until problems arise. Simple steps like learning how to build a budget, understanding how credit scores work, and starting to invest in index funds can completely change the trajectory of a student's financial life. Another part of the solution is practice. Knowledge is useless without action. Students should apply what they learn by setting up a budget, tracking every expense for a month, or opening a small investment account to get hands-on experience. By turning financial knowledge into habits, students transform theory into real-world skills. Consider the example of two students, Mia and Ethan. Both graduate from high school with the same grades and opportunities, but Mia decides to educate herself about personal finance. She reads books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad and follows financial educators online. She learns how compound interest works, so she starts investing $50 a month while still in college. She also tracks her spending and avoids unnecessary credit card debt because she understands how high interest can trap her. Ethan, on the other hand, never bothers to learn about money. He signs up for credit cards, spends freely, and ignores the fine print on his student loans. By the time they both graduate, Maya has a small investment portfolio and no consumer debt, while Ethan is struggling with thousands in credit card balances and no savings. The difference isn't their income, it's their financial education. This example shows how access to knowledge, combined with action, can completely separate two people with the same starting point. Students who educate themselves about money create a foundation that carries into adulthood, while those who ignore it are forced to learn through painful mistakes. Another major reason students fail financially is because of impulse spending and lifestyle inflation. The problem starts small. Students get a little extra cash from a part-time job, a stipend, or even student loans, and instead of using that money strategically, they immediately spend it on things that provide short-term satisfaction. It could be late-night food deliveries, the newest phone, or going out every weekend to keep up with friends. These small purchases don't feel harmful in the moment, but over time they add up and train the brain to spend every dollar as soon as it comes in. This becomes even worse when students experience lifestyle inflation. As soon as they earn more, instead of saving or investing, they raise their standard of living. They upgrade apartments, buy more expensive clothes, or start spending on entertainment at a level that matches their higher income. The cycle repeats itself endlessly, leaving no room to build wealth. The danger with impulse spending is that it creates a false sense of normal. Students begin to think they deserve to treat themselves because they worked hard, or that these small splurges don't really matter. But the truth is, every unnecessary purchase is money that could have been saved, invested, or put toward paying down debt. Lifestyle inflation is even more dangerous because it ensures that no matter how much money a person makes, they will always feel broke. If you earn $500 a month and spend $500, you're broke. If you earn $5,000 a month and spend $5 and you're still broke, the pattern doesn't change just because the numbers get bigger. Without discipline, higher income simply means higher expenses, and financial stress continues at every stage of life. The solution is to become intentional about spending and to practice delayed gratification. Students should ask themselves whether each purchase adds long-term value or if it's just satisfying an impulse. One effective system is the 24-hour rule. If you see something you want to buy that isn't essential, wait 24 hours before making the purchase. Often, the urge fades and you realize it wasn't necessary. Another key strategy is setting limits on lifestyle inflation. For example, if your income increases, commit to saving or investing at least 50% of that increase before upgrading your lifestyle. This ensures that your financial growth isn't completely consumed by higher expenses. Building habits of budgeting and tracking spending also helps identify areas where money is being wasted. Even a simple spreadsheet or budgeting app can reveal surprising patterns and highlight opportunities to save. Take the example of two students, Lisa and Mark. Both work part-time and earn $600 a month. Lisa spends most of her money on eating out, new clothes, and entertainment, telling herself it's just a small reward for the stress of school. By the end of every month, she has nothing left and often relies on her credit card to cover extra expenses. Mark, on the other hand, takes a more intentional approach. He budgets $400 for essentials, puts $100 into savings, and allows himself $100 for fun. When his income later increases to $1,000, he doesn't double his spending. Instead, he still lives on $600, saves $200, and invests $200. Over time, Mark builds a growing savings account and investment portfolio, while Lisa continues to live paycheck to paycheck despite earning more. This contrast shows how impulse spending and lifestyle inflation keep students trapped in the same financial position no matter how much they earn. The discipline to live below your means, even when your income rises, is what creates financial freedom. Those who resist the urge to constantly upgrade their lifestyle are the ones who eventually build wealth and escape the cycle of financial stress. A big reason many students fail financially is because they ignore side income opportunities. The problem is that most students believe their only focus should be academics or that working a job while studying will distract them from their grades. While education is important, this mindset often leaves students completely dependent on either their parents' loans or a single part-time job that barely covers basic expenses. By ignoring side hustles or small business opportunities, they miss out on valuable experience and the chance to build financial independence early. Worse, this habit of depending on a single source of income often carries over into adulthood. Many graduates find themselves relying entirely on one paycheck, and when that paycheck isn't enough or suddenly disappears, they have no safety net. This lack of income diversification is one of the silent reasons why so many people stay stuck financially. The reality is, students today have more opportunities than ever before to earn money outside of traditional jobs. The internet has created a marketplace where skills, creativity, and effort can be turned into income streams. Freelancing, tutoring, content creation, reselling items online, or offering digital services are all examples of side income opportunities available with little to no startup cost. The problem isn't the lack of options, it's the lack of initiative. Students often underestimate the power of earning even a small amount on the side. An extra $200 a month may not seem life-changing, but when used wisely, it can cover essential expenses, reduce the need for borrowing, or be invested to grow over time. Beyond the money, side hustles also teach real-world skills, time management, marketing, problem solving that aren't always taught in the classroom but are crucial in the professional world. The solution is to shift perspective from, "I don't have time," to, "How can I create value with the time I do have?" Students don't need to build the next big company or spend 40 hours a week on a business. Even dedicating a few hours a week to a side hustle can create meaningful financial progress. The key is to start small and stay consistent. For example, a student skilled in math could offer tutoring sessions to high schoolers. Someone creative could design logos on freelance platforms or sell digital products online. Another student might start a simple YouTube channel, blog, or podcast to build an audience around a topic they're passionate about. These side incomes may begin slowly, but over time they can compound. Just like investments, developing multiple income streams while in school also builds the habit of financial independence. So when graduation comes, the student already knows how to create money outside of a paycheck. For example, let's compare two students, Kevin and Rachel. Both attend the same university and have the same part-time campus job making $500 a month. Kevin is satisfied with that job and uses the money mainly for entertainment and daily living. He often complains that he doesn't have time to do anything else. Rachel, on the other hand, decides to explore side income opportunities. She starts tutoring high school students twice a week for $20 an hour and makes an extra $160 a month. She also begins selling digital planners online, which brings in another $50 on average. By the end of the year, Rachel has earned nearly $2,500 on top of her regular income. She uses half of that to cover expenses, avoiding credit card debt, and invests the other half. Kevin ends the year with nothing saved and no additional skills beyond his part-time job, while Rachel not only has money saved and invested, but also has valuable skills in teaching, customer service, and online business. This example shows that side income is not about getting rich overnight. It's about building options and independence. Students who ignore these opportunities often stay financially stuck, but those who embrace them create safety nets, reduce reliance on debt, and prepare themselves for long-term success. One of the most common reasons students fail financially is the failure to think long-term. The problem lies in the way students are conditioned to focus only on immediate needs and short-term goals. Most students live day by day, worrying about how to make it through the week, rather than how their decisions today will impact their financial life years down the road. They tell themselves they'll worry about saving or investing later, after graduation or once they have a real job. The issue with this mindset is that time is the most valuable resource when it comes to building wealth. And every year spent without a plan is a year of lost opportunity. Many students graduate and realize they've wasted 4 or more years without building any foundation, leaving them behind financially before their career has even started. The danger of short-term thinking is that it encourages bad habits and delays the process of wealth building. When students don't plan for the future, they are more likely to overspend, take on unnecessary debt, and miss opportunities to invest. They may not understand that even small amounts of money invested early can grow into substantial sums over time. By focusing only on survival or enjoyment in the present, they give up the chance to create financial freedom later. This short-term mindset also affects how students approach careers. Instead of choosing paths that align with long-term growth and financial stability, many choose what seems easiest or most convenient in the moment, only to regret it later when they're stuck in jobs that don't match their goals. The solution is to begin thinking long-term, even while managing short-term responsibilities. Students don't need to have everything figured out, but they do need to start making decisions with the future in mind. This means setting financial goals early, whether that's building an emergency fund, saving for a car, or investing for retirement, and taking small, consistent steps toward them. A powerful tool is understanding compound interest, which rewards those who start early. By investing even a $50 a month during college, students can take advantage of decades of growth, giving them a huge head start compared to those who wait until their late 20s or 30s to begin. Long-term thinking also involves developing good habits that compound over time, such as budgeting, avoiding unnecessary debt, and living below one's means. These habits don't just improve life in college, they carry over into adulthood and set the stage for financial success. Consider the example of two students, Emily and Jason. Both are in their early 20s and working part-time jobs while in college. Emily lives entirely in the short term. Whenever she gets paid, she spends the money on clothes, food, or going out with friends. She tells herself she'll save and invest once she has a full-time salary after graduation. Jason takes a different approach. Even though his income is small, he decides to save $50 a month and put it into a low-cost index fund. He also creates a simple budget and keeps his expenses lower than his income. Over the course of 4 years, Jason has not only built a few $1,000s in savings and investments, but also created habits of financial discipline. Emily, meanwhile, graduates with nothing saved and the same spending habits she developed in school. 10 years later, Jason's small early investments have compounded significantly, and his discipline allows him to continue building wealth, while Emily struggles to catch up. This example demonstrates how powerful long-term thinking can be, even with small amounts of money and limited resources. Students who fail financially often do so because they assume the future will take care of itself, but those who think long-term gain an advantage that compounds over time. The earlier these habits are developed, the greater the results will be. So let's quickly recap. Students fail financially for 6 main reasons. They normalize living paycheck to paycheck. They rely too heavily on debt without a repayment plan. They lack financial education. They fall into impulse spending and lifestyle inflation. They ignore side income opportunities, and they fail to think long term. Each of these problems is avoidable, but only if you start building the right habits today. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and drop a comment below sharing which of these 6 traps you've struggled with the most, or the one you're determined to avoid moving forward. And if you're serious about taking control of your money, don't miss my next video where I'll reveal the exact step-by-step framework to build wealth from zero, even as a student. Trust me, you won't want to miss it.